that power?
Any stories or legends about the Nene in particular, which is a Hawaiian goose, as being particularly telepathic with human beings? In Hawaiian tradition, no more so than any other animals. Because in traditional Hawaiian thinking, sometimes many families, they consider some animals as being also their ancestors. See? And so there was a common telepathic rapport with lots of different animals, especially the ones that your particular family or you as an individual were associated with. But the idea of speaking to the animals was not unusual, and there weren't any animals that were intrinsically better than other animals in that regard. An individual might have a better rapport with a lizard than with a shark, and be able to communicate with the lizard a lot better than with the shark, or vice versa. That doesn't mean the shark or the lizard had better telepathy. That had to do with better communication between individuals.
Do you have a theory about how we choose these animals that we have these rapports with, or that were chosen, or possibly past lives? I mean, I'm just wondering what your opinion is on how we connect with certain animals.
The most basic way that we connect with certain animals is by feeling. There's a feeling that we feel when we encounter or see or think about particular animals. And this is different with different people. Why that is, we have to get into pure speculation. We can speculate reincarnational connections. We can also speculate ancestral connections that still have remnants of that in the DNA. Okay? We can speculate qualities about an animal that remind us of qualities that we admire, and that could produce a good rapport. Okay? There's just a lot. Human beings are not simple creatures, so there's a lot of possibilities. Yeah.
Do you think that the Nene know that they're protected? Because they seem to be extraordinarily confident that you won't hurt them.
Do the Nene...
The other wild birds say
Sure.
taro fields, for instance.
Do the Nene know that they are protected? Now, the Nene is the state bird of Hawaii and is a legally protected bird. They are working to try and bring it back into greater numbers because it came close to extinction. Does it know it's a protected bird? It's very interesting about birds and other animals. They very quickly learn to adapt to human behavior. And when humans act differently toward them, they respond to that. So if enough humans don't bother them or go out of their way not to bother them, or sit and admire and look rather than chase them, they start to feel, hey, I don't have anything to worry about with this creature, okay? And so they begin acting differently, okay? They pick up on behavior very quickly. That's how they communicate a lot with each other. Right? Doesn't even have to be anything telepathic. It's just how they primarily pick up on behavior. There is some telepathy involved, of course.
So you follow that up, then if we want to communicate with animals,
Yes.
is the thing to do to watch and interpret their behavior? And
Okay, that's a good question. If we want to communicate with animals, let's look at how it was done in traditional societies. In some places, still being done. Okay? If you were told by your parent or your family to learn how to communicate with a particular animal, the very first thing you would have to learn would be learning through observation. You would have to learn very, very well everything you could about that animal's behavior. As you learned more and more about that animal's behavior, now this is typical with anything. In India, sometimes a child would be told to learn how to communicate with fire. And the child would have to sit every day, hours and hours every day, just being with a fire. So it's not just animals. something with human beings, the way we communicate. First, works best, learn as much as you can about it. Now, it's really helpful in today's modern world because we have so much information that's not available to people in indigenous societies. They have to go out and spend boring years trying to find the animal, then sitting watching them while it does nothing but sleep most of the time, and then learn something when it happens to move around. We can watch movies and videos and read reports, and we can learn about animals much more quickly. That's the first stage. Second stage is to spend time with the animal so that the animal gets to know you. And then what happens is there begins to be an emotional rapport, partly telepathic, partly energetic. And when you get to this stage, then you start understanding things about the animal that are not obvious from its external behavior, not obvious from anything you know about it. It's an inner type of learning. Anybody who becomes a master of any craft or any skill, even if you're an automobile mechanic, the same thing begins to happen. If you're an automobile mechanic and you learn everything you can learn about engines, what starts to happen after a certain period of familiarity and contact is you start to know things about the condition of an engine that's not obvious from any of the sounds that it's making that anyone else can hear. And you not only know what's going on inside that engine, you know what to do about it. And when you're at that stage, it's an instant thing. It's an instant kind of communication. So there's also a telepathic and energetic connection, even with things. Well, it's stronger with animals. Okay? It's stronger but more scary with other human beings. Okay? But this is how you begin to do this. So you start with knowledge. From knowledge you move into rapport. From rapport you move into a deeper understanding and connection.
Can I just follow that up with one more question? In the knowledge category, Matt and I have been having this ongoing discussion about how indigenous people used to get their knowledge from nature. That was what they had around them, nature primarily, whereas we're primarily book learners. And if we want to learn something, we go look it up in a book. Is there a difference between the two? I mean,
yes, there is. Book learning is not enough. Book learning is a fast way to get the knowledge base. Book learning does not teach you how to drive a car, or sail a boat, or find the drugstore, or do any number of things or pass the butter, that are any number of things that are part of our daily world. Okay? After the knowledge must come some kind of interaction, if you really want to learn. Otherwise, it remains intellectual learning without any physical correspondence, and that's very weak. Okay? When you combine the two, that's extremely powerful. Okay? But if you're only doing one, then that's weak.